Good afternoon. How's it going? Good? I see a lot of intelligent stuff out there, so, and I'm sure it's a lot to consume. You know what? Let's step back. I don't have any PPT for you guys, but we're talking about decoding the default, right? For me, the default started when my father wanted me to be in IIT, just like you. Papa, मैं आ गया, right? Before I begin, I wanted to ask you guys one simple question. How many out from you guys are from small towns or villages? Give me a loud cheer. Yeah, lot of people. I come from a very small town called Asansol in West Bengal. Let me ask you another question. How many of you have seen anybody getting sick in your family and suddenly there is everybody wanting to go to a bigger city, to get the patient, get its ilaj and बोल रहे हैं कि भाई यहाँ पे तो हो ही नहीं पाएगा. Have you seen this in your family? You have, right? I saw this same in my family when I was 21 years old. I saw my father selling all the family jewelry to get my sick mother go to Calcutta and get her treated, take her to Calcutta and get her treated. Now, I did ask him a question that, you know what, Papa, bagal mein hospital hai, why are we going to a bigger city? The answer was that yahan pe nahi ho payega. We got to go to a bigger city. While we went to Calcutta, we couldn't save my mother. My father lost all his wealth. Then the life started decoding itself, right? My father then gave me two options. Either go back to Asansol with him, help him with his business, live like a normal Bania guy, right? I'm a Bania, of course. The second option he gave me was that, you know what, go back to Delhi, be in Delhi, figure it out on your own. The choice was obvious, right? As a 21-year-old kid, अब किसको freedom पसंद नहीं है? So I chose freedom, right? I told him, you know what, don't worry, don't send me money, I'll be good. But kisko pata tha that, obvious also has a beyond, right? I never knew that this obvious choice would make me beg on the streets of Delhi to survive, to take shelter in gurudwaras, even live in servant quarters, right? But life has to move on. I chose that, right? I had nothing to lose. One fine day, I remember, and I was still studying in college with no money. I went to one of my bhaiyas. I call him. His name is Rahul. We call him Rahul Bhaiya. I went to him to ask for udhar, just like any 21-year-old guy. And while he did not give me udhar, but he did tell me if I could give tuitions to some other kids, and he'll pay me 150 rupees. Now, since I had nothing to lose, I had to accept that. But I'll tell you this, that was the time I felt even Ambanis would get a competition from me with that 150 rupees an hour cost. I took the job. With my first 150 rupees, I bought a second-hand shoes, right? Not for fashion, guys. It was purely to go and give interviews, right? Interviews in call centers. At that time, call center was the big thing, right? They used to pay good money. I got a job in a Hindi call center. 2,000 rupees ki salary. The first salary was 2,100 something rupees, right? Started working. From my first salary, I still remember, I bought one tape recorder. Now, not a big fan of music. Music sunne ke liye nahi. I bought it because I wanted to work on my English, because English call centers used to pay more money. So bought it. जिस सर्वेंट क्वार्टर में रहता था, वहाँ के मकान मालिक, मैं सुबह आता था 4 बजे शिफ्ट से, मकान मालिक के न्यूज़पेपर आते थे, पता भी नहीं होता था उनको. I used to start, I used to read newspapers, record myself, listen to it, correct myself. and went for all the big English call center interviews. Job milli. I was successful getting the job. Life moved on. 16,000 rupees was the salary. I mean, dude, it was something, right? Life moved on, and life started making me feel a little better. However, obvious kabhi bhi obvious nahi hota, right? Lost the job. Found another job, and the circle continued, right? For some years, when life threw lemons in front of me, and I started decoding it until I got into the world of healthcare recruitment, right? The job was very simple. Physiotherapist, and I started as a recruiter, right? Physiotherapist ढूंढो, visa दिलाओ, अमेरिका के सपने दिखाओ, और पैसे बनाओ. Sounds very simple, right? Of course, it was simple, but obviously, the obvious was not very, very interesting. Never was interesting, right? So I went to my boss at that time, and I requested him. I asked him that whether I can get into doing international business development for him. Well, guess what? He said yes, right? And he was like, "Bhai, koi karne ko to hai nahi, to tu hi kar le. I'll get some business." He had nothing to lose, and I had nothing to lose. That was the day, I became the first person in my entire family who actually wore a suit. I became the first person in my family who bought a car. I became the first person in my family, forget everything else, even had a passport, right? पहली country जब मैं business development करने जा रहा था, even the immigration officer was very curious, and he was asking me, he was like, भाई साहब पहली बार जा रहे हो? मैंने कहा सर बहुत clearly पहली बार जा रहा हूँ. So he wished me all the best. Again, life started decoding itself. Continued traveling, went to more than 40 countries, did sales in front of big hospitals across America, UK, Middle East, Singapore, you name it, was there. Now, one thing, whenever I used to sit with these big hospital owners, right, talking, selling them what I wanted to sell them, one thing I realized was how beautifully they are mobilizing their workforce, where the patients from small villages and towns were not coming to the big cities. Rather, the professionals were going and treating the patients in their villages and towns. The movement of professionals was beautifully done. What was the trick? The trick was very, very simple. Use technology. They brought all the retired professionals back in the workforce. They created a lot of flexibility for those women healthcare professionals who otherwise leave the ecosystem because they have to, take care of their family, and etc. And whenever I saw that, and whenever I heard that, I'm like, भाई साहब ये तो Uber है healthcare professionals का. Sounded very, very interesting. Sounded the right thing to do. Back in India, I still remember, I spoke to more than 65 odd hospitals. You name a hospital, I've spoken to them, gave them this blueprint, gave them the idea. Everybody ridiculed it, right? And one thing was very common, that ये इंडिया में नहीं चलेगा, right? एक बड़े senior healthcare operator ने, in fact told me that, what, बेटा ये Silicon Valley नहीं है. And I was there thinking, ये problem Silicon Valley की है या ये problem Thinking Valley की है, right? Because you guys just don't want to accept technology or anything new in the country. But little I could do anything about it, right? So again, life moved on, went to more countries, made a lot of money, got married, and suddenly in all our lives, COVID-19 came in, right? Life changed. It got overwhelmed. The entire ecosystem got overwhelmed, right? The same boss who gave me an opportunity to work in business development, called me one fine. He lives in the US. He called me one fine day and said, Abhishek, we cannot afford to run this company anymore. We got to shut it down. And immediately, now of course, I was panicked, right? But I did convince him to give me 6 months, and I promised him that I'll do something about it. I promised him that this company will be able to survive. He was kind enough to agree, kind enough to trust the words. Now back in my head, मेरे को पता था कि भाई साहब कुछ तो करना पड़ेगा, right? So then was the time when the Uber for healthcare professionals, the blueprint in the mind started to come on a PPT. Started making the PPT, जो समझ में आता था, जो समझा था, उसको बनाना शुरू किया. बीवी को टेक्नोलॉजी आती है, या उसने टेक्नोलॉजी समझाना शुरू किया. गूगल ने बिजनेस प्लान बनाना समझाया कि कैसे बिजनेस प्लान बनाते हैं. 2 महीना, and I was ready with my business deck, business plan, for whatever little I could get help from my wife and from Google Mata. I call Google as Google Mata, right? Went to the same boss, right? And I asked him, whether he would give me some money to start this work. Well, he said, bring me some clients. I mean, it was fair. It was a fair ask. I must say this, right? The quest of decoding it again started. After 26 HR heads saying no to me, the 27th one said, okay, let's try. Oh, by the way, by then it was just an idea, had no technology developed. समझ में आता था, बीवी ने समझाया था अच्छे से, technology कैसे चलेगी and everything, right? But it was just an idea which I threw in front of these HR heads and got one person agreeing to it. The good news is that then my boss gave me some money. It was enough to get a company registered. It was enough to get a logo designed, a website made, right? And then, the Jobbizo was born. That was the day Jobbizo was born. But company to bana liya, and you guys, when you go out, and a lot of people here would want to become entrepreneurs, right? कंपनी बनाना बड़ा आसान है, लेकिन कंपनी चलाने के लिए चाहिए होते हैं पैसे, बहुत सारे पैसे, राइट? अब ऑब्वियस क्या था? टू गो एंड गेट मनी. इन्वेस्टर्स को जाके पिच करना शुरू करो. करा शुरू पिच करना. एंड take a guess, how many rejections? 10, 20, 30, 90, 100? No. 116 rejections in less than 4 months. And I gave up. I'll be honest here. I gave up. Again, one fine day, my wife told me, don't worry, ho jayega, sab kuch ho jayega. While I heard her, but then, I started finding a job, searching, for a job on LinkedIn. When I was sitting that evening when I was sitting on LinkedIn finding a job, I saw one of the investors who rejected us before launched a book, right? And I just messaged her that, listen, great book, मजा आया पढ़ने में and great perspective. 30 seconds later, got a message, meeting tomorrow. And there I was looking at that message and I was like, dude, I have nothing to lose. I should take this meeting again. Full circle, right? But उनको क्या पता था कि मैंने तो वो किताब पढ़ी नहीं थी, right? मैं तो ऐਵੇਂ फड्डे मार दिए थे और मैंने उनको मैसेज कर दिया था. कोई बात नहीं, because there was nothing to lose. I read the entire bloody book in one night. It was a मोटा किताब था यार, right? तो पढ़ना पड़ा, ठीक है पढ़ लिया। दूसरे दिन गया और अरे ये इन्वेस्टर्स लोगों की आदत क्या है मैं आपको बताऊं, एंड यू गाइस शुड रिमेंबर दिस, दे विल ऑलवेज कॉल यू अर्ली मॉर्निंग बिकॉज दे वांट टू कैच यू नॉन प्रिपेयर्ड। सो गया, पहुंच गया, रात भर नहीं सोया, बुक पढ़ी, एंड सबसे पहले जाके आई आस्क्ड देम टू गिव मी अ सिग्नेचर ऑन दैट बुक। देयर वर टू पीपल हु लॉन्च्ड दैट बुक। मैंने उनसे साइन भी कराया, उस दिन टर्म शीट भी साइन कराया और पैसे भी आए, राइट? That was the aha moment for us. So that is when everything started to decode itself. That was the day, and today the new India has started accepting technology in healthcare. That was the day, and today, between that day, we have saved, the technology has saved a lot of lives in small cities, villages. That was the day, and today we have given more than 30,000 jobs and made people earn more than 30 crores Indian rupees. That was the day, and today, between that day and today, we have brought at least 10,000 women back into the workforce who were not able to work. Today, we give one job every 20 minutes. That is like, you call for a pizza, right? 30 minutes, we are giving one job in 20 minutes. That's like calling, pizza would also come late to you. But here is the thing, right? Whenever I sit with my team in that boardroom or the strategy room, we ask one question to ourselves, which is that अगर हॉस्पिटल हमारे बगल में है तो लाइफ को वेट करने की क्यों जरूरत पड़ती है? आज हमारा सिस्टम ये क्यों बोलता है कि यू वांट टू शो अ पेशेंट, कल आना, या डॉक्टर्स नहीं है? एंड वी एवरी डे एज अ टीम वी सिट टुगेदर and we are working to solve this problem once for all. Now here is something which I want you guys to remember today, right? Decoding the default is a series of motive, intent, and grit. And obviously, life will throw a lot of situations in front of you, but please do not stop believing in your dream, right? Not all the big ideas have to come from a big boardroom. Sometimes it just needs one kid from a small town to ask that difficult question. And I hope that today somebody from you will not dare to ask that question once again and change the world after all. That was my time, guys. Thank you so much.